Hello and welcome to a DFS preview for the 2022 Travelers Championship. My name is Eric and here at SweetSpotDFS, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. And we start with these previews by looking at all the stats that matter. We're trying to target the optimal lineup in this video. So we're going to be looking at the bucket system, which allows me to analyze the top 10 of this tournament and figure out what stats matter for the field that we have this week. If you're unfamiliar with the bucket system, I have a video in the description below. Check it out. It's a pretty quick video. You can learn a lot in the first 5 minutes. You'll have a better understanding what we'll be talking about in this video. I'll also be going over the golf course and the tournament information and also recapping the US Open. Since I no longer do review videos, I rather put them in these previews to show you guys how well the sweet spot process does every single week. So actually, before we get into any of that, I had a giveaway that we needed to get to 400 subscribers before I would run it, and it was for $30. As you can see, the goal all the way over there to the left, 399. We're one short. So what I would typically do is shave $5 off and just say, hey, we just need one more subscriber. But Jim Lemoyne, who was a guy who won the last giveaway, decided to donate his $10, and I was thinking about making this $40. Like I was about to. We had reached 400 subscribers yesterday, but obviously someone backed out. Either they quit YouTube or they just no longer cared. But we didn't hit 400. So for any of those that are out there like, you know what, I just only care about this giveaway, I just want to get to 400, just saying this now, even if you subscribe for the one day, someone might unsubscribe and we won't get there. So let's not try to just get to 400. Let's try to get past 400. I mean, I'm going to have weekly goals every single week, and they are going to be a part of giveaways. So let's just try to get as many subscribers as possible and not just 400. So we'll run this again, $30. If you want an entry into this, all you gotta do is be subscribed, comment down below, and then you can share this on Twitter. I usually post something after I publish this to YouTube. You can retweet that one and you'll get an additional entry. I put out 3 videos a week, a preview, a strategy, and a prize picks video. If you comment on each one of those, you get 1 free entry for each of those videos. So that's 3 per week, plus you share one on Twitter, that's gonna be 4. You can get 4 entries into this giveaway. Again, we only need 1 more subscriber and I will run this. And it has to be by the time I hit record for my preview pods every single Monday. So let's try to get to 400. Let's try to get past that, because I think the next goal that I'll have is either 450 or it might be 425, whatever. So it's just always an incentive. Basically, I want to reward your guys' participation. That's the whole purpose of these giveaways. I'm also not made of money, so I can't be doing like $5, $10 every single week. Let's hit some goals and reward everyone who participates that way. So that's the first giveaway. The second one is a prize picks giveaway. It's basically a rebate, if you want to call it that. All you have to do is sign up on prize picks, use the promo code SweetSpot when you do sign up, and then put an initial deposit of at least $20 in your account. I'm going to give you $20 back. Plus, prize picks are going to match your deposit up to $100. So that 20 turns into 40, and I know you've heard this before in all of my videos. It only costs you that initial deposit plus your sign-up information. Super simple, super easy. There's a link in the description below that'll get you straight to that sign-up page on PrizePicks if you're in a state that allows it. And again, I'm gonna give you $20 just for using the promo code SweetSpot. No other content creator does that for any of their followers, anything like that. Plus, in the future, if I run any contests on PrizePicks, I get to see everyone who uses the promo code SweetSpot, and I'll reward you guys that way. Haven't signed up yet? Please do so. Again, link in the description below. And of course, I will have a cheat sheet out for the Travelers Championship. I would have said by the time I record this, but for whatever reason, the PGA Tour, something's going on with their stats. This happens every once in a while. I don't know if there's like a scheduled maintenance that happens on Mondays, but I wasn't able to update all of the stats, and that usually just goes into the scoring model. So I don't have the sweet spot ranks. And I know some people care about those things. I know some people care about the other stats that go with it other than the bucket system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till the PGA Tour republishes their stats, however that gets fixed. And then I will either post something on Twitter or, you can always check the link in the description below where I do have that cheat sheet. Go check that just to see if it's been updated to the Travelers. Usually in that first cell, you'll be able to see it there that says updated for the Travelers Championship. I think it currently says updated for the US Open. So, and another way you can tell is look at the bucket system page of the cheat sheet, and it will show the tournament that I've updated to. So again, it should just say US Open, but just double check. Again, link in the description below. And then tomorrow I'll have the optimizer ready. I'll showcase that in the video. If you want access to that, be subscribed, comment down below. If you need a topic, just give me your favorite golfer this week and you will get an entry into that. You can leave whatever comment you want. And then email me at SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com and just say you would like to use the optimizer, because I can't reach your email through YouTube. Most of you guys don't have it set to public, and I don't blame you for that. But I can't contact you through YouTube to your email to say, here you go, here's the optimizer. So again, those are the easy giveaways. Unfortunately, again, we could not run one for the US Open, but one more subscriber and I'm giving $30 away. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. All right, let's go ahead and get into this review of the US Open. Matt Fitzpatrick won. And here's the thing I'm going to do going forward. I'm not going to recap the tournament anymore. If you want my opinion, you can ask me on Twitter. You can ask me in the comment section below. I'm just not going to recap it. I'm just going to tell you it was fun. Went down to the last hole between Fitzpatrick and Will Zalatoris. Zalatoris' putt looked like he was going to make it. He made all the adjustments because Matt Fitzpatrick went right before him and basically gave him the line. He should. It looked like he made it. So I'm not going to fault Zalatoris, despite him having kind of a weird putting stroke. His putts outside of 8 feet look pretty superb. Anything inside 6 feet, they look very, very shaky. But anyways, very fun. I didn't get to watch a lot of it. I got to watch the end. I was visiting with my dad while I was watching it, so it was a great Father's Day, tournament to watch, as it always is. That's my recap. Let's go ahead. Let's get into the sweet spot process. And we're going to start by looking at the optimal lineup versus the winning GPP. Every golfer here that has the little black tick mark on the top right of their screen is a part of the optimal lineup. So that includes Matt Fitzpatrick, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, Keegan Bradley, Adam Hadwin, and Hayden Buckley. Hayden Buckley was a flat 6,000. That was the lowest price on DraftKings. So if you played him, congratulations. Hopefully you paired him up with some of these other guys and you got 6 to 6 through. It was pretty difficult. I saw a lot of early winning lineups that had 3 10K golfers and then 3 6K golfers to go with it. I'm like, this is never going to hold up. It never does. But, well, I should say this. Only one 6K golfer was in the optimal lineup. And that's kind of my firm belief, that usually only one 6K golfer is in the optimal lineup. Sometimes 2 are. I'll never go more than 2. So whenever I see 3 6K golfers, I'm like, well, you just lost yourself any GPP winning, any GPP. You lost yourself a winning GPP lineup, basically. So that will always be my advice. Don't go 3 6Ks. That is not the right choice to do. Your GPP winning lineup had Matt Fitzpatrick, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, and Adam Hadwin of the optimal lineup. But then it had Denny McCarthy and Cameron Tringali. So it also only used one 6K golfer. And I think the guy who won it's a bit controversial. So I think he's won a Millie Maker before, but used his girlfriend's account to have more lineups in it just to cover all of his bases. So whatever. It's drama. It's whatever you want to make of it. It seems cheap, but whatever. So your optimal lineup scored 489.5 points, and it used up $49,600 of salary. If you were watching the preview last week, you would have noticed that no optimal lineup dating back to 2018 left more than $500 on the table for the US Open. It's remarkable. It's really, and I think a lot of it's because of how many quality golfers there are in there. you definitely want your mix of 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s. And with that, you want to use up most of the $50,000 salary. It's not going to be like, you know, like I said, it won't be 3 6K golfers that finish inside the top 10 that make up the optimal lineup, or 2 6Ks and 2 7Ks, and the optimal lineup is like 48,000. So definitely, you didn't want to leave a lot of money on the table. If you did, I'm sorry. You should have watched the preview. I would have told you differently. Don't do it. Your GPP winning lineup scored 480.5 points. So there's a 9-point difference between the optimal and the $5, and it used up $50,000 of the salary. Now, both of those lineups had golfers that were outside the top 10. And if you remember, at the Sweet Spot Optimal, we want all 6 golfers inside the top 10 and over $49,000 if possible. If not, then we don't have a Sweet Spot Optimal. So that Sweet Spot Optimal, just to give you a heads up, scored 482.5. So that's 2 points clear of the GPP winning lineup, and he used 49,900. And those are all the golfers here in the green. As you can see, it does include 2 6K golfers. So right there and there, you would want 2 6Ks. I was not projecting that whatsoever, especially 2 high 6Ks. So there's no way I would have gotten there. So although this is the Sweet Spot Optimal, I probably would not have advocated for it. I personally would not have gotten there. I did allow the optimizer to select 2 6K golfers, but it rarely ever did. And with that being said, like, there's, you know, 40 golfers in the 6K range. Hard to get on just the right 2. But Joel Dahmen and Denny McCarthy are, I want to call them stalwarts on the PGA Tour. Like, they're known golfers. They're established. McCarthy's the best putter on tour, has his share of top 10 finishes this year. And he just continues to always get his tour card back every single year. So he's one of those, I don't know if you want to call him a journeyman or whatever you want to call him, but he's proven. Joel Dahmen is a winner on the tour. He's proven. So your 2 6K golfers, they're proven golfers. Unlike Hayden Buckley, who is a kind of a relatively young guy. Like, I think this might be his rookie season, maybe his second season. That would have been a lot harder to, you know, forecast, project, whatever you want to call it. So, but it still included Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, and Zalatoris. There's your 11 or your 10 and above 9-8 start. And I always advocate starting that way. Maybe you mix and match. You remove one of the 9Ks for another 8, or maybe you remove the 8 for 2 9s. Like Matsuyama was up there. It would have made building lineups a little bit more difficult, but it still was possible. So that is your whole rundown of the optimal versus the GPP, as well as the Sweet Spot Optimal. To show you how well the buckets did, what I'm going to do is we're going to hide a lot of these columns. I just like to show you them so you guys can see them. We'll hide all of that. And then what you can see on the screen right now are the successes and basically just this year's totals. So if this column under this year's totals is a success, that means the bucket was a success. So if it says Y, which means yes, then it was. Usually we see 94% of these buckets hitting. And there's no exception this week. The only 2 buckets that didn't hit were our strokes gained 2 and strokes gained 3 buckets. So 34 out of 36 buckets hit, which means to me it's a success. That's your 94% clip. I think it's like 93 something. But 93, 94% doesn't really make a difference. It's really interesting because if you look at the strokes gained 2 bucket, if we go back to this and we take a look at the DK page, you can currently look at the cheat sheet. I don't know if, well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe you can. If it still says US Open by the time you're watching this video, you can always come back here, go to the strokes gained bucket. You know, you can put a filter on it, whatever. And just take a look at all the 2s, the strokes gained 2 golfers that were in that bucket. If we were to sort by salary top to bottom, Jon Rahm, Victor Hovland, Cameron Young, I mean, you know, not to play on his last name, but he's a young golfer on tour. Brooks Koepka, Max Homa, Bryson DeChambeau, Corey Connors, Abe Answer withdrew, Davis Riley, Adam Scott. Like, a lot of these golfers, there were enough in here to make a case for you know, multiple top 10s. But you can see Rom just finished in 12th. Adam Scott just finished in 14th. So my original projection was somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers were going to be inside the top 10. 0 ended up showing up. Now, on the flip side of that, I only projected somewhere between 0 to 2 strokes gained 3 golfers, and we had 5 inside the top 10 and 3 in the optimal lineup. So that bucket just failed because there were way too many of them. And if we look at those golfers, I think you're going to have your Will Zalatoris up here. Yeah, Zalatoris, Matsuyama, Morikawa, Keegan Bradley, and Joel Damon. So, yeah, pretty difficult. I shouldn't even say pretty difficult. If I sort this by top to bottom, we're going to have some really good names here. Like Morikawa, to me, kind of came out of nowhere because he'd been playing some poor golf leading into this tournament. But yeah, there are also some good names. Jordan Spieth, Will Zalatoris, Hideki Matsuyama. In my opinion, you have just as many good golfers in this bucket as you do in strokes gained 2. It's just when we look at everything from past US Opens, strength of field of this event, and what applies to each of these buckets, I just didn't see strokes gained 3 being as, you know, I wouldn't say important, but like say prevalent to the strokes gained 2 bucket. So the fact that these buckets didn't hit, not the biggest issue to me, not the biggest deal. You still had 4 top 10 strokes gained 1 golfers, and that's kind of what we projected. 2 to 4, 4 were in the top 10, 2 were in the optimal lineup. So, you know, you can kind of forecast that. I don't know how many of those golfers you could really put into your lineup. I'm sure those were all of your top end golfers. I'm just going to take the filter off of this and just sort by position top to bottom. Fitzpatrick was a strokes gained 1. Scheffler was a strokes gained 1, so that's easy to get to. You couldn't put Rory with that lineup. You could put Gary Woodland with that lineup, though. That's really interesting that he was a strokes gained 1 golfer. Those are your only 3 in the inside the top 10 that you could actually roster together. But you could have with Woodland. You wouldn't have won a GPP with that because you would probably have to replace either Adam Hadwin or Keegan Bradley that scored, you know, well, I guess 3 to 6 points more than Woodland. Anyways, so it was doable. I would have probably put Zalatoris on my lineup if I had Woodland, so I could have had my 3, you know, strokes gained 1 golfers, but I probably wouldn't have had 3 strokes gained 3 golfers. And maybe you didn't even have to. I don't think you would have had to. You could have put these 3 guys together, add Woodland, maybe McCarthy, and I have a flat 7 left, 49.9. So I could have put these 6 golfers together. I don't think I would have won a GPP, though. Oh, I would have. 488. So, you know, that's the other thing. It's a raw system to some extent. Like, it's been defined, or it's been redefined. I don't think that's the word I'm looking for. Refined. There we go. It's been refined. Where it isn't as raw as it once was, but we're still going to lose out on this bucket. This bucket would actually hit because we only had 2 strokes gained 3 golfers in there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it too much more than that. We still had 2 buckets fail. If anything, we still would have had 1 bucket fail. And if you're following this very strictly, there's no way you're building an optimal lineup. Well, let's see. Strokes gained 2. Is there anything? Well, Rom was 12th, and I guess Adam Scott, you could have built with him $7,200. Yeah, so it was doable. Let's just say it's doable. It wouldn't have matched the sweet spot process because you wouldn't have had all 6 golfers inside the top 10. But hey, it's all about winning money. It's all about trying to succeed. So I'm just gonna close the chapter here. Again, 34 to 36 buckets worked. It was pretty great. If we look at, I guess I'm not going to close the chapter yet. If we look at our marquee tee times, by the way, this hit. So that was awesome. Remember, you want to grab 2 to 4 golfers that are in the marquee tee times. And I'm basically highlighting every one of them. Except for this that got screwy. Let's do it. Okay, so that worked. Okay, there we go. I have all the groups highlighted that were in the marquee tee times. So, and I also have all the groups, which you can also sort by on that cheat sheet. One of the rules, again, like I said, 2 to 4. So Scotty Scheffler was one, Matt Fitzpatrick was another, Will Zalatoris was the other, and Keegan Bradley was the fourth one. So 2 to 4. With that also, you never want to select 2 golfers from the same group. As you can tell, all 4 of them not in the same group. This is a recurring theme, a recurring pattern that happens every single week. Now, I can't say every single week. It's not that definitive. Out of the last 60 weeks, I think 4 times there were actual 2 golfers from the same group in the optimal lineup. But if you do all the percentages and the odds, you still want to go with my method. Do not pick 2 golfers from the same group. That makes lineup building so much easier for you guys, because if you wanted to put a Scheffler and a Brooks together, I would sit here and say, don't do it. And guess what? You'd have saved the heartache, the headache from picking a Brooks Koepka to go with a Sky Scheffler. Now, vice versa, like if you liked Joaquin Niemann or Cameron Young, I would say this: you gotta choose between any of those golfers in that lineup. Did you like Will Zalatoris more than you liked Joaquin Niemann or Cameron Young? If so, don't play the other 2. Again, that would have saved you heartache and headache if you would follow that, that logic. So again, it's really up to you guys. You can, like I said, I track this. You can go watch all the videos going all the way back to the last PGA Championship when I actually started really tracking it, like on video. You're gonna see it's pretty consistent. You want to avoid grabbing 2 golfers from the same group, especially when it's like a US Open like this, where you have so many good golfers to choose from. But entirely up to you guys. Again, that's what I see. And the rankings, those apply with the marquee tee times. And the rankings did pretty well. Like, what I'm trying to look for is to have 4 golfers inside the top 20 inside or in the optimal lineup. So when we're looking at this, Scotty Scheffler, my number 6 golfer, and actually if you just look at all the top 20s, we have a bunch of guys inside the top 20. Conversely, we also have a bunch of missed cuts, so that's kind of the bummer with all of it. Is it's like a 50-50 proposition, basically, where, yep, we do have a bunch of top 20s, but we also have a bunch of missed cuts. So to me, it's a success. We have 3 in the optimal lineup inside my top 20, and a 4th one ranked 24th. So it was good. It was good nonetheless. It's unfortunate because, like, what I ended up doing was I went with my number 1 guy, Rory McIlroy, and I paired him up with Patrick Cantlay in most of my lineups. So 10-5, 9-2, really easy to build lineups there. I did have a bunch of Fitzpatrick and Zalatoris, or I shouldn't even say that. I had a bunch of Fitzpatrick lineups with like Cantlay and Rory. And then there were a few lineups I didn't have Cantlay and I instead had Zalatoris. So a lot of those lineups cashed pretty decently for me, but I also had 2 missed cuts to go with that. So I never had a 6-6 lineup that had, a lot of the pieces you needed. But yeah, it was really close. I mean, Rory finished 5th, Scheffler finished 2nd. Pretty close. Like, my feelers on Rory were pretty good last week, just like they were really good at the RBC Canadian Open, where I kind of hit it big. Yeah, so nothing for me that's really super disappointing here. The rankings were pretty good. Okay, that was a long recap. I'll try to shorten that up in the future. I'll probably just go over this a little bit quicker, but let's go ahead. Let's get into this Travelers Championship and first bring up the tournament information. This tournament was established in 1952, Cromwell, Connecticut. It's a lot of golfers' favorite tour or favorite stops on the tour. And you can kind of see that with the strength of field. So it's 156 players, a full field event, top 65 in ties. Your average winning score is -15, which puts it right in that intermediate mark. Like, it's not a really low scoring event and it's not a really high scoring event. I think the highest score was -12 and the lowest score was -18. I'm going to double check on that right now. -19 was the lowest score recorded, and -12 it happened twice. But yeah, right in that middle mark. So I think it invites all different types of golfers to be able to win this tournament. So I don't think you really have to do a lot of research on trying to figure out, you know, who are birdie makers, who are cut makers, anything like that. I think you can just mix and match pretty equally that way. Strength of field's 466, which is, I think, better than average. And that's just me kind of eyeballing what strength of field is. If you take away all the majors and say the Players Championship, it's a pretty high strength of field event. So I think that bodes well. I would say, just like everyone else that I've been listening to, because it's very valid, be aware of withdrawals from golfers who were deep into the US Open, like say a Scotty Scheffler. I don't think he withdraws, but golfers that finished top 5, top 10, that had a very difficult weekend or a very just difficult week, just trying to get to that mark. Because the US Open is very grueling. Obviously, you'll hear that again too. But just be on the lookout for that. When that happens, the strength of field will go down. The buckets will also change when we go over those, because that includes strength of field, and it includes the individual strength of field for each golfer, for each bucket. So those will mess around with the projections a little bit. Not a ton, but just a little bit. Moving on from there, weather. I think there's a thunderstorm coming in on Thursday, 76 degrees, and then 82 on Friday. I'm recording this Monday night, so obviously weather can change. We all know that. You always want to double check Wednesday night just to see what that weather is going to do for, like, maybe weather splits when it comes to AM PM splits, stuff like that. The wind looks pretty benign though, both days, Thursday, Friday. I don't think you have to worry about the wind. As it sits now, there doesn't seem to be any like weather advantage, but again, always double check Wednesday night just to do your due diligence. The golf course is TPC at River Highlands. It's a Pete Dye golf course. This is like the 6th event that's a Pete Dye on tour. I think if we were to run them down, you have PGA West at American Express. You have RBC Heritage, Harbortown Links, RBC Heritage. The Players Championship is one. The Match Play is another. The Austin Country Club. You also have the Zurich Classic. So when I go through my Pete Dye stats, and what you'll see on the cheat sheet is it will have Pete Dye as one of the grass stats. I don't include the Match Play, and I also don't include the Zurich, because the Zurich is a team event, and this year's winner is Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele. How much of that was Patrick Cantlay being really good at Pete Dye golf? Because he is one of the better golfers in the field on Pete Dye golf courses. How much is that his success versus Xander's success? And then you just do that with each teammate. You know, what does that teammate bring to a Pete Dye golf course? Just all depends. So I exclude that tournament. I exclude the Zurich. I also exclude the Match Play because I don't know how to record that to equate to a normal stroke play event. So those two tournaments are cut out of mine. Now, when you do your research, you do you. Whatever you feel like, whatever you think is correct in your mind, I say you just go with it. Because golfers are going to feel more comfortable on certain tracks. And Pete Dye does a lot of the same things on all of his golf courses. Sure, there are unique traits to each one of them, but a lot of architects have a main style. They have a strategy as to how they build golf courses, and it will include a lot of the same, you know, characteristics that you see from one tournament or one golf course to another. Pete Dye is one of those. So I think there are quote unquote Pete Dye specialists, and I think it would be worthwhile to include that in your research. This golf course is a par 70, 6,800 yards. It's like the 4th shortest golf course on tour, if I remember correctly. You have a mix of bent and POA, basically from fairway to green, but in the rough you have Kentucky bluegrass and fescue. That bluegrass can get thick if water's applied to it, but that also applies to just about every golf course. I think the scoring average here over the last 9 years is like 69.7 or 69, somewhere between 69.5 and 69 point something like that. Which means it's very close to par. That means it's a hard-ish golf course. I think there's a lot of strategy that needs to be deployed here. You can kind of see the shot shapes required right here in this box. It's also kind of a shot shaper's golf course. I think when I originally did this last year, if you were to go watch that video, you're going to see like way more numbers in the draws and fades. I refined that this year. I re-looked at it and I'm like, yeah, I don't think it really requires a draw here, because you can hit iron off the tee, or you can hit 3-wood off the tee and just take out any dog leg and just have a longer approach. For me, my rules are anything, you can get the ball to 150 yards. That would be it's not A1 positioning, but it's just called B1 positioning. Which, if you're unfamiliar with that kind of term, it basically means that is the smart route to take. That is where you would want to leave your golf ball. Now, some of the golfers that are shot shapers can get the ball to 100 yards on some of those dog legs, but it does require you to shape the shot considerably. I don't include that with my draws and fades, because if you can put it at 150 yards, 150 yards is a wedge to most of these golfers. And with a wedge, you don't really have to shape anything, because the ball's going to land and it's going to stick more often than not. You're going to be able to put a good enough amount of spin on a golf ball to hold a green, or to find a pin that might be, kind of a sucker pin that's hidden behind a sand trap, or, a ridge or something like that. So that's how I look at it. So I took away some of the shot shape requirements at this golf course. It still is, in my opinion, a shot shaper's golf course. And you can see draws matter a little bit more than fades. And if you think about, Bubba Watson has won this tournament. He is a lefty that just likes to carve the ball left. Why don't I go ahead and put on the results that you can see. Harris English likes to draw the golf ball. Some of these guys like to fade the golf ball. Kisner likes to draw. Koepka fades the golf ball. Harman's a lefty who draws the golf ball, so that's more like a fade. DJ fades the golf ball. Streelman fades the golf ball. So there's already a bunch of fading shot shapes. Bryson DeChambeau likes to draw the golf ball. So does Brendan Steele. So does Kevin Na. Those are golfers who like to draw the golf ball. See Ches Reavie up here. I'm not sure. I think he's a fader of the golf ball. Keegan Bradley draws the golf ball. Paul Casey draws it. Joaquin Niemann draws the golf ball. Abe Answer's up there again. He fades the golf ball. Day draws it. DeChambeau draws it. Bubba would be that right to left shot shape. Same with Paul Casey. Same with Stu Cink. Holmes fades the golf ball. Hausler, I think he can do both. I'm not super positive. But then there's Brian Harman again. There is Bryson DeChambeau there as well. So you can see a bunch. Spieth draws it, but Berger fades it. Hoffman draws it. Casey's up there again. He draws it. Patrick Reed draws it. So you can see kind of a trend of just a mix and match. There's both types of shot shapes for some of these golfers. So it's really up to you. I would kind of lean more towards a draw golfer than a fade golfer. And I should say this. That will be my tiebreaker. Basically, if I'm between two golfers, I'm going to go with one that draws the golf ball more than one that fades it. So that's kind of how I sit with that. That is your tournament and golf course information preview, basically. Now let's dive into the buckets and kind of tell you what you should be looking for when building your lineups this week. I'm just going to cruise through it. Again, if you don't know the bucket system yet, there's a link in the description of this video. They'll send you to a video that explains all about it. Again, it's a short video. Highly recommend you watch it if you haven't seen it yet. You learn a lot in the first 5 minutes, and I'm not kidding. You could just watch the first 5 and understand this, but it's an 18-minute long video. It's not difficult. Put me at 1.5 times speed, and that'll cut it down in half, or cut it down in by a quarter, or put me at 2x speed. I promise you, we won't go back in time. I don't speak that fast, so that might be doable, and that'll cut that video in half. It'll only take 9 minutes to get through it instead of 18. Anyways, as we go through this, what you should look for is in these two columns here, you'll see max projection, min projection, and then the buckets here, they're defined by the range. So when we're looking at last year finishing positions, obviously those ranges should make sense to you. 1st to 20th, 20th to 40th, so on and so forth. So when you look at these two columns, anything in this column here, the minimum projection, if it's greater than 1, basically tells you you're going to see at least one golfer inside the top 10 from that bucket. Then if you see anything greater than 2, it just solidifies you are going to see one golfer in that bucket more often than not. Obviously, we just recapped the US Open and saw 2 buckets failed. That can be doable, but then there's 34 buckets that succeeded. So I think the biggest bucket that has the most success, or the one that might be, well, I shouldn't say easiest. Let's just put it this way. This bucket here, the did not play bucket, we'll probably see somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers in there that will finish inside the top 10. But there are 69 golfers in that bucket, so good luck. Like, it'll be a little bit difficult to try to choose which ones are going to be the best ones. On average, we see 72, so it's right on par. It works. The next best bucket is that last year one, which is a top 20 finish at this event from last year. This year we have 15 in there. We usually see around 17. And I'm projecting somewhere between 1 to 3. So it's a good chance we'll see 1. Most likely we'll see 2. And probably not the greatest chance of seeing 3, but it is possible. So look for it. Maybe you start with your top 20s because there's only 15 of them. Another bucket that's kind of worth considering are golfers who missed the cut last year. This is one of those things that most people don't talk about because it's a hard stat to quantify. Most people are looking for successes at this event or successful stats leading into this tournament. The wonderful thing about the bucket system is going to tell you, guess what? We might see a missed cut inside the top 10, a missed cut from last year inside the top 10. It's almost an anchor bucket. There are too many golfers in that bucket, but the projection is between 1 to 2. Remember, when this column here doesn't have anything over 2, so you can see this bucket does not have, it's not over 2. I shouldn't say this bucket. This max projection isn't over 2. We then drop this one down to 0. So I'm projecting 0 to 2 golfers who missed the cut last year to finish inside the top 10. So as we go through this, that's how I want you to look at each bucket. Your 2 top buckets to really focus on are top 20s and did not plays from last year. When we look at last week buckets, this includes the US Open. And if we look at every single, I just forgot we didn't go over optimal lineups and GPP winning lineups. But we'll do that after all this. If you look, every single week before this tournament is the US Open, minus 2020 where it was COVID. It was RBC Heritage. But we can continue to go back, 2019, 2018. The US Open is the tournament that precedes this tournament. So when we look at these stats, you can see having a top 20 finish at the US Open is actually a good mark to have. So for those that are worried about fatigue, I think you can certainly be worried about fatigue. Who that's going to be, I'm not sure. And I think it's very difficult to determine which of those golfers are going to be fatigued. But having a top 20 finish is a good stat to have heading into this tournament. And I mean a top 20 from the week before, which again is the US Open. Now, likewise, having a finish between 20th and 40th is actually a good result here. We don't see that a lot at most tournaments. So having a 20th to 40th finish, again, this is the last week bucket, so from the US Open. That is a good bucket to have. We're faced with the same challenge with the missed cut from the week before. Just like in the last year bucket, we're not quite to 2 for the max projection, so I'm projecting somewhere between 0 to 2 inside the top 10 this week. I mean, the totals are very similar to the average per year for that bucket, so I think it's probably a good chance we'll see 1, but just as equal as we'll see 2 is probably as we'll see 0. So what I'll say is there's a 50% chance I think we'll see 1. There's a 25% chance we'll see 2, and there's a 25% chance we see 0. I think that's how you can look at these 0 to 2 buckets. But you should also focus on golfers who didn't play in the US Open. So there's a projection of 1 to 3. There are 100 golfers in that bucket this week. Good luck. Like, that's finding a needle in a haystack. So this is definitely a volume driven bucket. This is one that you should probably sparsely play and not really focus on a golfer from that bucket and just go from there. Now, when we look at course history, you know, coming in with the best course history, this year we only have 2 golfers that have course history of 0 to 20. We usually see about 12, somewhere between 11 and 12. So the projection is really low, but the success rate's pretty high, and so is the frequency rate. Personally, I mean, there are 2 golfers in that bucket. They're both over 9K, and they average 10,100 salary. You can't play both of them, and I wouldn't really recommend making sure one of them is in your lineup. So you might just straight up be able to fade those golfers. And if we look at it, course history 1 would be Rory, and the other one, the other one would be Tommy Fleetwood. So those are your guys who are course history 1 golfers. Now, I'm not super high on Rory this week. I think last week, winning at the RBC Canadian Open, I don't think that was a detriment to his US Open finish, but I think he got very frustrated at the US Open. And to me, I think that just probably fatigues him for this event. I don't quite like him, although a lot of stats kind of point towards him this week. I think I just stay away from Rory this week, especially at 11,000. If he was like 10,000 like he was the last 2 weeks, yeah, load him up. But I stay away from them this week. Your better buckets are your course history 2s and 3s. That's that 20 to 40 range, which is, you know, really good. If we didn't have Rory and Tommy at this event, all your best course history guys would be in the course history 2 bucket. You could relatively say that this week 26 golfers are in that bucket. Usually we see 19, and we're projecting somewhere between 2 to 4 inside the top 10 this week. Course history 3s, that's that 40 to 60 range, 1 to 3 golfers from that bucket, and then the rest you just mix and match. Probably don't really worry too much about it. Now when we look at recent form, we only have, we usually see 4 golfers every single year having really good recent form coming in this event. We also have 4 this week. But the golfers that are there and the success rate from this bucket don't make it a very promising one. So I wouldn't necessarily focus on those golfers, and I wouldn't pair 2 of them up together. Although I'm going to project 0 to 2 because we always round up in this bucket and we always round down in this one. So it does say 0.61 to 1.02. That's 0 to 2 in my book. I like the under. Like, I would go 0 before I go 1 or 2. Like, I'd give you 75% chance there's 0 from this bucket. I'd give you like 15% chance that there is 1 and a 10% chance there's 2. No, it wouldn't even be that. I'd give you like a 1% chance there's 2. And then obviously the difference, 14% or 24% chance there's 1. So take that for what it's worth. You really want to be focusing on the other good recent forms coming into this week. That 20 to 40 range, that 40 to 60 range definitely pays to have good recent form. One of the buckets is going to be probably, you know, golfers that have at least 2 top 10s and maybe only 1 missed cut, maybe 2 missed cuts, but they average out to be that 20 to 40 range. This 40 to 60 range probably is just going to be top 20s and top 40s, or you know, maybe a couple missed cuts in there. Maybe you have 3 missed cuts, a top 10, and then you know, a 20th place finish. That's how you get that 40 to 60 range. Those are going to be golfers you want to be loading up in your lineup, because Both of these are projected to be 2 to 4 golfers to finish inside the top 10. That kind of covers your entire top 10 projection because 8 of them is the max. One of those buckets only has 20 golfers in it. The other one has 52. That's more of a volume driven bucket. That 20 to 40 range is kind of where you want to go. And again, you can follow me along on the cheat sheet once that gets published and find who these golfers are. And again, follow the rules, 2 to 4 of them. Moving on from there, we didn't talk about the optimal lineup versus the GPP winning lineup. We'll go over that here shortly. But when we're looking at salaries, having a 10K golfer looks like something you're going to want to do. We have six of them this week. Be on the lookout for withdraws. And when those withdraw, these projections will go down because the strength of field for that bucket will also go down. We usually see 4.5. There's an 80% frequency rate here. So my salaries go back to 2017, I believe. Double checking 2016. Yeah, so 2017 all the way on, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, and now, well, it would just be those 5 years. So when we look at those 5 years, 4 of them, that means out of those 5 years, 4 years had at least one 10K golfer inside the top 10. I'm thinking you're going to need a 10K golfer this week. And I think it's a no-brainer because there's 6 of them. I think that's easy to determine. Now, with that, you probably want a 9K golfer as well. I'm projecting somewhere between 1 to 3. When I was first looking at the 9K range, I didn't quite care for what I saw. But it has a super high success rate. And usually DraftKings, I understand salaries are... what would you call them? Subjective. Think of the word. It was just in my head. But there's a reason why golfers are priced the way they are. DraftKings has a formula to create the salaries. A lot of those formulas match what our rankings are, what our models spit out. So it's not like a arbitrary is the word I'm looking for. It's not just an arbitrary number that DraftKings is applying to these golfers. There's a reason these golfers are 9K. And with that being said, at this tournament, it seems like 9Ks have a pretty high success rate. 100% frequency rate, meaning it happens every single year there's one inside the top 10. So I'd be on the lookout to play a 9K golfer. Again, I don't know if I care for the 9K range this week just by my eyeball test. I much like the 8K range, but we're projecting 0 to 2 inside the top 10 from this range. So I don't know. I do like that 8K. Here, let's just pull it up. I wanted to refrain from looking at these names, but I guess when we look at the 9K range, I'm gonna take some of that back. Because I do like Jordan this week. I also like Sungjae this week. I also like Neiman this week. I also like Bradley this week, despite his emotional Boston US Open. I also really like Tommy Fleetwood this week. He draws the golf ball. I think this is a golf course that fits him. And I also think it fits someone like a Neiman. I also think it fits something like a Jordan Spieth. Those are golfers I do like at this golf course. The golfers that I have highlighted right now, Finau, Koepka, Power, and Varner, I just don't know. If I go down to the 8K range, now there's no like advantage for volume here because it's the exact same number we see every single year. 10 this year in the 8K range, and we see that on average. So that 0 to 2 projection kind of goes hand in hand with that number, and we have that same amount of golfers in the field that we usually see. Davis Riley, I really like this week. It could be something that he's trending towards fatiguing because he's been playing quite a bit and he's been contending quite a bit. So he might be one of those that I would consider kind of fatigued. Really like Aaron Wise this week. Kind of like Mito Pereira this week. Brian Harman is a stalwart at this golf course. Webb Simpson plays PTI golf courses pretty well. He also has the shot shape for this golf course. And then I actually don't mind going to Jason Day. He's somebody that I'm kind of like afraid to play just because I don't know what's going to happen with his back. But yeah, I think he's a good play. I also think Jason Kokrak is a good play. The other 3 golfers that I've left highlighted, Leishman, McCarthy, and Mitchell, I just don't know enough of, and I don't really care that much for. So when I think of the 8K range, it's like I like 5 golfers from the 8K range. I also like about 5 golfers from the 9K range. So I will probably be playing a lot of 10-9-8 lineups, despite what the projection says here. I mean, again, it's 0 to 2 8K golfers. So if you don't like any of those 8K golfers, feel comfortable knowing that my projection is 0 to 2, and it's kind of on the low side. I wouldn't play 2 8K golfers this week, just based off of the sweet spot process, but also don't be completely discouraged from doing so. 7K is a 7K range. Like, it's usually a volume driven bucket. There's 38 golfers in the bucket this week. We're going to project somewhere between 1 to 2. It's kind of worth noting that we usually see 2 golfers every single year inside the top 10 that's in the 7K range. That's what you see in this minimum bucket right here, or this minimum column. So do with that as you will. And then the 6K range, yeah, we might see 1 6K golfer inside the top 10 and maybe inside the optimal lineup. But because it's a weak bucket, it's actually a lot lower than we usually see. There's more low 6K golfers and less high 6K golfers this week, which I think is really interesting. It's almost a complete flip that what we see on average. The DraftKings might be tweaking something. I don't know why or what the purpose is, but either way, maybe just 1 6K golfer, and then so I think that 10-8, that 10-9-8-7-6 build is probably the best way to go. I'm at 51 minutes. Let's cruise through here. Strokes gain stats. I think coming in with the best strokes gain stats, that's positive off the tee, positive approach, positive around the green, and positive putting is the way to go. I'm projecting 2 to 4 golfers from that bucket inside the top 10. And then it's a mix and match with really positive off the tee, positive putting, and whatever stat in between, along with positive putting, negative putting, and whatever stat between, as well as negative off the tee, positive putting. So those are my 3 buckets. And if you're unfamiliar with this again, there's a bucket system video in the description below. Go check out that link. Watch the first 5 minutes and you'll understand what these strokes gain stats are. So with all that being said, I'm just going to stick to your best strokes gain guys this week if I can. Now that first bucket has an average salary of $9,600. There's 11 golfers that are 9K and above, and there's only 14 of those golfers in this bucket. So realistically, how I usually say, or what I've come up with is, if this is over 50%, the 9K plus range, over 50% in any bucket that isn't a salary bucket, I'm cutting my projections in half. At least that's what I think I did. Maybe I just said cut it down by 1. Maybe that's what it was. So instead of 2 to 4, I'd say 1 to 3. I would probably definitely want 1, maybe 2 golfers, and then just leave it there. And then what you can do with that extra one is, you know, this projection's 0 to 2. This projection's 1 to 3. This projection's 1 to 3. If you only liked 1 strokes gain 4 golfer, you can add that additional one from trimming off the strokes gain 1 into that bucket, or whatever bucket you think fits your narrative when lineup building. But those are all the buckets. Again, 94% clip for success for these buckets. So do with that as you will. I'm obviously going to follow buckets I do every single week. But one thing I forgot to get to is the optimal lineup versus the GPP winning lineup. In 2017, I didn't actually have a GPP winning lineup. I just created a secondary lineup. But you can see what your optimal lineup was. Streelman, I just like to focus on the salary build. So we had a 10, 9, 7, 7, 7, 6. So like I said, start with 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, and then just substitute from there. So basically what this lineup did was it substituted 1 8K. If we start with that general 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, you take the 8 out and you add another 7, and voila, you got this lineup. Going to 2018, your optimal lineup, and by the way, optimal lineup used up 49,700, leaving $300 on the table in 2017. In 2018, it left $800 on the table, And what you had was a non 10K. So you had a 9, 3 8s, 2 7s. So if you were to start 10 9 8 7 7 6, you substitute a 10 for an 8, you substitute a 6 for an 8, and that's how you get your 3 8s. So like I said, you can mix and match like that. But again, template is a 10 9 8 7 7 6. 2019 left a ton of money on the table. That is not a lineup I would even try to replicate. I do not like that whatsoever. Let's just create a realistic lineup while we're doing this. Let's see, can we do a 10, 9, 8, 7? We'll use this 6K and another 7. What else do I have? Oh. Yep, you can do this one right here. That's 49,300. So that, I'll just put that over here, 49,300. So you just saw I went 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. I don't know how many points that scored. I am keeping the points, the totals up here, but obviously I didn't include them. I don't know what I was doing in 2019, not doing any of that. But we'll do that and just say sweet spot optimal. So again, I think it's always worthwhile to start 10 9 8 7 7 6. Again, you could get there just by in 2019. Oh my gosh, the optimal lineup in 2020. This is the third tournament back from COVID, from the COVID break or whatever. Left $8,000 on the table. Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh my god. Okay, let's just build another lineup. 10, 9. We'll add the 2 7s and a 6. Now we gotta find an 8. We can't inside the top 10. So that's fine. How about another 9? Yes, you can do this lineup right here. How many points did this score? That scored 669. Your optimal was 695, and your Millie Maker scored 656. So the lineup I just created by just eyeballing this, going 10 9 8 7 7 6, or trying to, that beat that lineup. Now we replace an 8K. This is how I like to look at it. We replace an 8K golfer. Let's pretend, you know, Dustin was always going to be our 9K. DeChambeau was always going to be our 10K. And we're like, well, do we like anyone in the 8? No. Well, what's a low 9K that we like? Then we go to Abram Answer, and then we fill it in from there. Streelman, nah, Gordon, simple. And this one equals 49,800. So you can't really go from Gordon to anybody. Maybe you could go to Ryan Armour, but it doesn't matter, honestly. Not a big deal. So anyways, again, 10 9 8 7 7 6. Start there and see if you like any of those lineups. If not, just substitute 1 or 2 of those salaries for a different one. Simple. In 2021, your optimal lineup was 49,300. GPP winning lineup used up all the salary. I think that's also what it did in 2020. Okay, it left $300 on the table in 2020. $600 in 2019 for the GPP. Anyways, not that big of a deal. So this one's a little bit more doable when we look at building a lineup. So this one started with a 9, and then we have 3 8s again. Oh no, sorry. Brooks Koepka 10, Abe Answer 9, English 8, Leishman 8, Kramer, Lebioda. So this is a bit unique. So it goes 10 9 8 8 6 6. So like I always say 10 9 8 7 7 6. Basically what we did is we went 10 9 8, right? And we substituted one of the 7Ks for a 6K. Actually, we substituted a 7K for an 8K, and we substituted a 7K for a 6K. So if you look at it that way, you can do it that way as well. I don't advocate for something like that. I always want to put another 7K golfer in my lineup, so we could go from Lebioda down to Kevin Kisner to get our 7K in there. So now we got 10.98876. That works for me. You're not really replacing a lot of points there. You go from 100.5 to 98.5. So that's doable. And you're only doing one substitution, 1.7 for another, or for an 8. Yeah. Looking at optimal lineups, going over all the buckets, I think it's still worthwhile to go 10.98.776 and then mix and match one of those. So if you don't like the 8K range, substitute up to a 9 if you can. If not, substitute down to a 7. Maybe you like 3 high 7K golfers. That's fine. You're probably going to have to skip an 8K range, or you'll have to skip a 9K range. It's up to you guys. But I think starting 10.98.776 is the way to go. All right, so that was a lot longer than I anticipated. That's an hour, and that's fine. It was a long US Open recap. It's a major tournament, so it's okay to have a longer recap. But a reminder, we need one more subscriber to do this giveaway, $30. And I do these during the preview videos, so it will be during next week's preview that I'll run this if we can get up to 400 subscribers. And if you want an entry, be subscribed, comment down below, give me your favorite golfer this week that you're going to build your lineups around. And then if you want an additional entry, just retweet the tweet that will have this video that I sent. Well, it's a lot of words there, but I always send out a tweet with a YouTube video saying, hey, watch this. You retweet that, you get an additional entry. So go do that. If you also haven't signed up for Prize Picks, link in the description below. Put $20 in your account when you sign up. I will then give you $20 back, and Prize Picks will match your deposit. So you'll have 40 in your account, and it won't really cost you much. Again, cheat sheet is in the description below. I'll see when I can update that. I'm just waiting for the PGA Tour to either go through their maintenance or something to update the stats that I need. Once that happens, I will then publish the cheat sheet, and therefore you guys will have it. But that is it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.